Here are the solutions for the week 1 check for understanding. Given f of x equals 2x squared minus 3x plus 1, find. First, we'll find f of negative 3. So to find f of negative 3, let's get started. That means that everywhere we see an x, we're going to replace that with negative 3. So that would be 2 times negative 3 squared minus 3 times negative 3 plus 1. All right, so we remember from our order of operations that the first thing we have to do is square negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. So this is 2 times 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9 plus 1. In other words, 18 plus 9 plus 1, or 28. So our answer for the first problem, f of negative 3, is equal to 28. Next, we'll find f of a plus 2. Now, if you plug in an expression, our answer is going to be an expression. All right, so again, f of a plus 2, that would be, wherever we see an x, we're going to replace that with an a plus 2. So 2 times a plus 2 squared minus 3 times a plus 2 plus 1. So let's carefully consider what this is equal to. So remember, if we want to do a plus 2 squared, a plus 2 squared means a plus 2 times a plus 2. And remember, we have to distribute, or if you want, you can use FOIL, whichever method you're used to. But we would have a squared plus 2a plus another 2a plus 4, or in other words, a squared plus 4a plus 4. So it's important that you remember to distribute. You can't just square a and square 2, otherwise you'll be missing this middle term of 4a. All right, so we have so far 2 times, this turned out to be a squared plus 4a plus 4. Let's go ahead and distribute here. That's minus 3a minus 6, and then we have a plus 1. So now we'll distribute here. We have 2a squared plus 8a plus 8 minus 3a minus 6 plus 1. And so now we'll gather our similar terms. So we have a 2a squared. If we look at our other terms, we have an 8a minus 3a, and if we combine those, that's going to give us 5a. And finally, we have 8 minus 6 plus 1. 8 minus 6 plus 1 is 3. And so our answer to the second problem is 2a squared plus 5a plus 3. Okay, let's get some more room here. And we'll take a look at our third problem. So in our third problem, we're not asked to evaluate something. Instead, we're asked to solve. All right, so let's try C. So for C, it says solve f of x is equal to 3. So we're being told that f of x is equal to 3, and we're being asked to find x. Well, then we have 3 is equal to 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. So this is an equation that's quadratic, meaning it has an x squared in it. So remember, what you want to do is you want to make one side equal to 0. So we'll have 0 is equal to 2x squared minus 3x minus 2. And now what we'd like to do is we would like to, we could use the quadratic formula, or we could see if this factors. Why don't we see if it factors first? So we'll put a 2x here and an x here. If we put a 2 here and a 1 here, and remember, this is just kind of trial and error. So let's see what happens if we do this. If we do this, let's check our middle term. We would have 1x minus 4x, so that would give us negative 3x, so this is good so far. And 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, so this is how it factors. Now the reason we factored it is because now what we do is we say, okay, to solve it, we take the first factor, 2x plus 1, and we say that might be equal to 0. You just go ahead and solve this. And so one of our solutions is -1/2. And now we're going to do the same thing for the other factor. So the other factor is x minus 2. X minus 2 is equal to 0. And if we solve that one, we come with x is equal to 2. So our two answers for this problem are -1/2 and 2. All right, let's take a look at the third question. The third question asks us to evaluate a difference quotient. So remember, the difference quotient is an expression that's going to be very important as you start your study of calculus. And since this is a pre-calculus class, the class to get you ready for calculus, we want to make sure that we give you some practice with difference quotients. All right, so we're just getting some room here to get started. Great. Okay. So what we'd like to do is the same thing as before. We're going to find f of a plus h. That means wherever we see an x, we're going to replace that with a plus h. So first of all, let's try that. F of a plus h would be equal to 2 times a plus h squared minus 3 times a plus h plus 1. Just like before, we have to be careful when squaring this. So let's do this over here. So we have a plus h times a plus h. We have to remember to distribute. So that'll give us a squared plus ah. And we'll distribute again. So we get another ah plus h squared. Notice that we have 2 of these. And so when we simplify, we have 2 times a squared plus 2 ah's plus h squared. Now we'll distribute the -3, minus 3a minus 3h plus 1. And now we'll just keep simplifying. So in here we have 2a squared plus 4ah plus 2h squared minus 3a minus 3h plus 1. And now we'll keep simplifying. And look, there's no similar terms. So this is what we're left with. Now you would think that after all that work we're done, but really all we did was that first expression, f of a plus h. So now we have to keep on going. All right, so that means we're going to need some more room. So let's clear off some space here so we can keep going. All right, good. So f of a plus h turned out to be this expression right here. So in the difference quotient, we have f of a plus h, which we just found out was 2a squared plus 4ah plus 2h squared minus 3a minus 3h plus 1. Now we're going to subtract f of a, which means that everywhere we see an x, we're going to replace that with a. So, I don't think we have enough room here. Okay, so let's move it down here. All right, so the only reason we're doing this is so we have a little extra space. So again, f of a plus h was 2a squared plus 4ah plus 2h squared minus 3a minus 3h plus 1. We want to now subtract f of a. So we have 2a squared minus 3a plus 1. So this right here, this expression here, is f of a. And then what we want to do is we want to divide all of this, according to the difference quotient, by h. Okay, so really all we have to do is a little simplifying. So we're going to distribute this negative sign, and then we'll divide everything by h. All right, so here we go. 2a squared plus 4ah plus 2h squared minus 3a minus 3h plus 1. Now we're distributing the negative sign. That's minus 2a squared. A negative times a negative gives us a positive 3a, and a negative times a positive gives us -1, all divided by h. So now let's see if we have any terms that cancel. So let's take a look. Oh, here we have a 2a squared and a negative 2a squared, so those are going to cancel. Here we have a negative 3a and a positive 3a, so those are going to cancel. Here we have a positive 1 and a negative 1, so those are going to cancel, meaning that when we combine them, we have 0. And we see that nothing else cancels. So we're almost done, but not quite. So we're left with 4ah plus 2h squared minus 3h, all divided by h. So the final touch is to factor out a common factor on top, because we notice that all of these terms involve an h. So we're going to factor out the common factor of h and then get our final answer. So this would be the same as h times 4a plus 2h minus 3, all divided by h. And now the reason we factored out the common factor is that we see that h over h is equal to 1. And so our final answer is just going to be 4a plus 2h minus 3. And that's a difference quotient. I know that's a lot of tedious algebra, but you want to really practice that because that's going to be so useful to you when you start calculus. And the last question in number 1, let's see if we can squish it in somewhere. What is the domain of f of x? Now remember, the only functions that have restricted domains are square root functions, even roots functions, I should say, and rational functions. Notice that f of x is neither of those, and so the domain is going to be all real numbers. So for 1e, the domain is all real numbers. There's no number that you are forbidden to put in for x. All right, that took a while, so I'm going to stop the video, and the next problem will be in our next video.